What's up, y'all? This is the FemFuture Podcast where we, you, me, and the audience around us get the opportunity to learn from amazing women curating a better future for themselves and for others. I'm your host, Amber Latrice, and today we are joined by an amazing financial educator and founder of Financial Space, Miss Cynthia. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you for that sweet welcome. I'm doing amazing. I'm excited to be here, and can't wait.
Awesome. So you and I got the opportunity to connect for a moment before the podcast started. But for our audience members that don't know who you are, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm really excited you're here with us. So my name is Cynthia Diaz, and I am a certified financial educator. And so my story is an interesting one, how I ended up here. And I always like to tell folks, I'm one of those folks that changed careers later in life, but I just felt, I don't know, things were changing internally. I felt a calling in a different direction. And I'm very in tune with myself. And so it's just a blessing to be in the space I'm in. So I specifically work with communities of color, first gen folks, really helping them build wealth. I'm trying to help close that wealth gap. And I'm trying to do it with intentionality and compassion, because as we all know, the financial industry hasn't been very inclusive or kind in the past. So I'm trying to change how we view this space. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for allowing us to get level set on who you are right now. But we want to understand a little bit more about who you used to be. So who was Cynthia Diaz at 21? Who were you when you were 21?
Oh my goodness, 21. Wow, I was graduating from college at that time. At that time, I want to say I was proud of myself because I was graduating from college, but I think I was still in a space where I was trying to figure myself out. And just to kind of give you a little context, I was actually one of the kids born and raised in LA, by the way. Born and raised in LA.
All right.
Actually, right from Hollywood, grew up in Echo Park. But I was always one of the kids that got bussed out to the suburbs. And I love to tell the story because for me, I feel like it drives a lot of just my identity and who I am. But at that time, back in the day when LA was busing these kids out to the suburbs, it was all the brown kids, all the Filipino kids, all the kids of color that were being bussed out to the valley, to communities that were predominantly white. And so for me, being a person of color, Latina, being bussed out into these spaces where all of a sudden you go from the hood and you're starting to see the nice houses, the nice cars, people that don't look like us, you really start to ponder and reflect, where we live, it's not that nice. Where we go, wow, this is very different, and the people don't look like us. And that really, for me, impacted me at a really young age. And so for me, that also, I grew up with a single, family home. My mom was a single mom working multiple jobs. For me, seeing these things were a huge catalyst for, okay, I need to get myself to college to better ourselves. There's no way my family is going to be able to better our situation unless I go. And so I kind of took that on, that responsibility, really thinking about not only myself, but thinking about my family. So, for me, identity wise, I share this all the time because I'm finally at a space where I feel even just comfortable talking about it. I had a really hard time when I was younger, being Latina, feeling like, oh man, I'm one of the few Latina kids that's in like the AP classes, the smart classes, with all the white kids. But I'm not white. So technically I don't belong in that space, but then I come from the hood and all my other friends are not in these classes. I'm technically not Latina. So I definitely was in this very interesting space all throughout high school, trying to bridge both, and feeling like I don't belong here, I don't belong there. And I think college was one of the few spaces where I'll be honest, I sought specifically a multicultural sorority because I didn't feel like I belonged in any space. And I thought, well, if I go in this space where there's a mixture of people, I guess that's where I'll inject myself and that's where I'll feel accepted.
Yeah.
So that was a positive experience for me, but I do still remember at 21 feeling very insecure, really trying to find out where I fit in and what my purpose was. And so I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew that I've always known that I've always been very mission driven. Like, okay, I've seen poverty, I've seen the communities we come from. I want to help, but I don't even know how I'm going to do it. And so in looking back at my younger little 21 self, I think I was definitely still in a place where I was very unsure and not empowered yet by who I was as a woman of color. I think I still had not really gotten to that place. And so I share that because, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but it's fascinating
Yeah.
looking back at the space I'm in now, back to that 21-year-old that was trying to figure out her identity and where she fit in, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. 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 And I know that there's a lot of us that can relate to that, and that like kind of identity struggle, and also what does it mean to be super smart and in these classes, and for whatever reason people don't look like me in this space. What does it look like to try and find community in those places, and then community also back home, where sometimes your friends aren't in the same classes or don't have the same upbringing or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's your family. So for you, what was that journey like? I definitely would like you to bridge the gap from the 21-year-old that was uncertain, that you just mentioned, to the like freaking bombshell that is Cynthia Diaz, founder of Financial Space right now. Like, so definitely bridge that gap. But along the journey, can you take us through what that identity journey was like? Like, what was it like for you to come into yourself?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I'll say that. It definitely I have to say that, when you come from a Latino background, typically mental health is not a thing, right? If you feel sad,
Definitely taboo.
yeah, it's definitely taboo. Like, what do you mean you're depressed? What's anxiety? Like, what is that? Like you just don't talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
You don't. If you're feeling any certain kind of way, it's like you don't. So I do remember it was I think a big catalyst that kind of really prompted me to dive in and just kind of assess me was, my aunt passing away, who was really important to me. And I remember I was in grad
Mm-hmm.
school. I had chosen to go to grad school. And she passed away. And I think at that point I was in just this, again, this very weird space trying to figure myself out, where I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
Obviously I can't talk to family about this. And I also couldn't talk to family about it too, because I'm first gen. So I think for a lot of us first generation folks, especially, women, we carry a lot on our shoulders. There's a lot of responsibility that we carry. At the time I was the first one that had gone off to college, the first one that was going off to grad school. So I think for me to even share that I was struggling in any way just felt like I can't do that. And so, but her passing actually prompted me to seek therapy on campus. I was in grad school, and I think I had seen a sign. I was like, you know what? Let me just go in there and see what this is about. And really, for
Yeah.
me, therapy was probably one of the biggest catalysts that really helped just give me a space to talk about these things, because I couldn't talk to anyone in my family about this. I felt like all of the struggles, especially when you come from an immigrant background, and I just felt like I can't burden them with this. They have their own stuff that they're navigating. Like, let me deal with it. So it's felt like a very lonely journey, I'll be honest, for a long time. But that, I think, was a huge catalyst for me to really do a deep dive and figure out who I was. Which then prompted me into, different careers. Just to give you a little bit of background, I used to work in college access and equity. And my job for a lot of years was helping inner city kids get into college. Because for me, again, growing up in poverty, growing up with limited means, I was like, okay, what for us as folks of color is going to help shift that? At the time, I had no idea about finances. So in my head was like, college is the way to go. And I did that for a very, very long time. But as rewarding as it was, and I loved what I did because I saw myself in these students and I thought, yeah, this is the way to go. I also started to slowly shift and learn a little bit more about finances and how this wealth gap was impacting all of these students that I worked with. And I'm working with all these high school seniors who all of a sudden, Black and brown, are saying, but Miss Diaz, how am I going to pay for it? I'm really scared. I can't talk to my mom about this because they can't help me. And I thought, oh my God, these stories are so similar to the ones that I went through. And as I'm processing this, I'm kind of, really seeing myself in them. I thought, this isn't sitting well with me. I don't like this. And that also was another process of, okay, I've taken this journey, I've gotten here. How else can I be impactful and of service? And that honestly took me in a whole other direction where I had to do some soul searching. And again, I think for me, a lot of it has been taking some time to really tune in and have conversations with myself. I think that has, I guess how I should reframe it is really developing a relationship with myself to learn to trust myself. Because I think for a very long time, because I had all these identity issues, I didn't know how to talk to myself. Like I didn't really know who I was. And I think I was seeking external, I don't know, validation or external direction because I was so unsure of me. And I think as I really started to talk to myself and do some real soul searching and build a relationship with myself, this is why what I do now is so impactful and it's so like soul driven, because I feel like part of this was really having these conversations with myself about like, okay, what am I doing? What am I really doing? What am I meant to be doing? How am I also healing a lot of my own wounding through this? And really in having these conversations with students, it prompted me to see a new gap. Like, oh my gosh, I come from poverty, they come from poverty. No one's teaching them about money. No one's talking to them about money. No one's talking to them about money in a way that acknowledges the poverty we've come from, the systemic barriers that we've faced, how difficult it is to live with one parent and see them struggle, all these things. And I thought, okay, I think I'm going to take a leap here and I'm just going to dive into this numbers space and figure this out so that I can help. So I actually, I always love to share, like, it was really my students that prompted me kind of also into another like self-reflection journey that helped me really pivot careers. And, as I transitioned, I got a certification, I did like a deep dive. I decided, okay, Cynthia, I think this is the moment. Like, do you trust yourself to like switch careers? Like, do you have the ability, Cynthia? Like, who are you, Cynthia? Can we do this? And again, doing a deep dive, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I trust myself. Yeah, no, I am a Latina. I am first gen. I'm powerful. I got this. I'm going to survive. I've been surviving this whole time. I can do this. I can pivot and start my company in a completely different direction. And that's really how I got here, to be honest.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing journey. First of all, like, so kudos to you for just kind of taking those turns where you needed to and making the pivots where necessary. You said a lot that I want to like double tap on, and I'm trying to figure out exactly where to go because you said so many amazing things. Okay, I'm going to jump to something that you said a little bit in the middle.
Yeah.
So you talked about this concept of learning to speak to yourself and kind of getting to know yourself. And you kind of like threw in this piece that also acknowledge that because you didn't, you kind of turn to external validation. So I know I'm not supposed to do this. It's like definitely like interview etiquette 101.
Yeah,
no, but
sure.
I'm
Go
gonna
there.
ask a two-part question because the way the way you stated it kind of like made my mind go a couple places.
Yeah.
So what was it like getting to know yourself, and how did that process change your relationship with external validation?
Ooh, that's amazing question. I'm gonna try it. I'm starting to feel the emotions, but
It's
it was
this is like say I'm always a safe space. Granted, this will be on the internet if you still allow it to, but
absolutely.
like emotions are okay. Tears are good.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, you can see the tears coming. There's just a lot of healing. And I think it was a lot of acknowledging the little girl, the challenges that we faced, growing up. It was a lot of, I don't want to use the word reparenting myself, but it was a lot of me giving myself all of the things that I think I wasn't able to receive. And again, not because I don't think my mom didn't have the capacity, but I just, wasn't able to. I acknowledge it's tough being a immigrant, single mom, like trying to make it here with multiple kids. Like it's not easy. And so I think that journey of like healing, reconciling some of that, was not easy. I'll be honest. It's been it was, some years of like really just being intentional and tuning in. So yeah, so it was a very difficult healing journey, but I think very rewarding in the sense that I really was learning to love myself in the reparenting and in the like, but Cynthia, it's okay. Like, it's okay to be afraid. Hey, it's okay that you feel alone. Like, you're not alone. It was a lot of that created just the tears throughout the journey. But I feel like that was so necessary for me to really tap into me. I think if I hadn't gone through that, I don't really think I would be in the space that I'm in now. And granted, it wasn't as easy, but whoa, like where I'm at now is so different because of that. So that was the first part. And the second part of that was
how getting to know yourself changed your relationship with external validation.
I think you know what it is? It's created a lot of peace. Because I'm feel so much more confident and comfortable with a lot of aspects of myself and who I am. And I think the more I know who I am, the more internal peace I have. I think before there felt like there was a lot of chaos inside because I didn't really know where I fit in, who I was, etc. It was just kind of out there. And now it's a very calming, it's a very calming. So I don't think to a certain extent, I mean, I think still external factors do impact in a way. I'm still in a journey working through that. And I think that's just a lifetime journey that we'll all go through. But it's a very different place where the piece that I think I wanted earlier in my years, I didn't have, that I now have now as it pertains to even external people, validation, seeking things. Yeah, definitely looks different.
Wow. That's awesome. And thank you for the transparency and your willingness to share and even have those moments like in this space on the podcast. Because I truly do believe that those moments matter. I think we sometimes kind of cave to this societal norm that emotions aren't real, they're not okay. And the reality of the situation is emotions are good and tears are healthy. So I love I love what you stated about like kind of the tears that have come along the journey. And it seems like you kind of went on this journey to discovering almost like you are enough, just kind of like within
Oh my
yourself. So
gosh.
what was it
Yes.
like for you? What kind of shift did you see when you finally realized that you are enough?
Oh my gosh. That's so powerful. Honestly, like that. It I'm like sitting here and I'm like smiling because it's a really good feeling considering the challenges as a child. Feeling not enough in the spaces again, in the classes, filled with white kids. I didn't look like any, feeling like I wasn't enough because I didn't have the nice things they had. I didn't have hair like them, or I didn't look like them, and feeling, that there is a very real inferiority complex that happens, especially when you truly are the minority in that space. And so, oh my gosh, yeah, to now be in this space where, I feel like I'm enough, and I still I continue the conversations with myself. Don't stop. I mean, this is a
Absolutely.
continual. Like I have my journal here where I write like my daily intention and like my, okay, what is it, and where I talk to myself, and so I still continue reaffirming, but oh my gosh, I think this internal validation and this internal like self-worth really has allowed me, I think, to be so intentional in the work I do. And I think
Mm,
that's why the work I do, I love, and it just means so much to me, because I find that so many of the clients and the people that I work with are people like me. We've had very similar experiences. We felt like we're unworthy, either because what we look like, where we come from, the money, our socioeconomic status, background, etc. And so for me, it's such a cool thing to be here so that I can now create that space for others to feel what they need to feel or go through their journey within the space that I create, if that makes sense.
that does, that does. And that is actually a perfect bridge to my next question, because something that you stated was kind of like getting to that space where you were able to know yourself, you were able to adjust your relationship with external validation. You talked about getting to those places and
Mhm.
how that impacted your outlook on finances.
Mhm.
So what was that like? How can how we feel about ourselves impact what we do financially?
Oh my gosh. It just, it's so, like, I always tell people, and this was my problem with like the traditional finance industry and just traditional finance stuff out there, is that it did not acknowledge the emotional, the psychological elements that have to do with money. And then you add on top of that, for folks of color, the systemic barriers, the things of the racism that has kept us from
Yeah.
building wealth. I mean,
Yeah.
just how impactful that has been. You add all of that, the poverty that we've experienced, you add all of that, and it just, that alone makes it so difficult to have a positive relationship with money. I mean, experiencing poverty is really a form of trauma. I mean, to be in a state of survival for so
Mm.
long, to have, be in the state where your nervous system is constantly figuring out where our mom and dad going to get the money, or, oh my gosh, we haven't paid the rent, or oh my gosh, we're going to have to eat the same thing every day because there's no money. Like this constant, state of survival. I mean, that is financial trauma in itself. And so a lot of the folks that I work with, it's very illuminating when we're talking about this, because they realize, wow, my body has literally been in survival mode for such a long time. I didn't even know it. It became the status quo. It became that's what
Yeah.
it's been, that until we begin to talk about it, they're like, whoa, okay, let's tune in. So, a lot of what I do is which is why how I introduce myself. I'm a firm believer of like empathy and compassion when it comes to
Mhm.
that, because how we interact with our finances has absolutely everything to do with all these external factors that and barriers that have kept us from making more, asking for more, using certain coping mechanisms to spend. So I can go on and on.
That part. Oh my gosh. The coping mechanism of spending money.
Yes.
So I'll just let that flow right into a question of its own. What
Yeah.
advice would you have for someone that maybe does use that financial coping mechanism to either feel better about themselves or for external validation? What advice would you have for those?
Oh my gosh. Taking a moment to tune in. And, you know, this is something that I share with my clients. You know, let's take a moment. Well, let me just share an example that I used to do. I was a constant Target shopper. I love Target. I know most of y'all out there have to love
We
Target.
all love a little Target. Come on.
But you know what? I realized, and this again was when I was in this journey of like just really tuning into myself. I realized Target. I love these Marshall runs. I love doing these runs where I just go and I'm wandering around, and I had to tap in because I was looking at my finances. I was like, I'm spending a lot, and that is a whole other story on me overspending, compensating for the little girl that did not grow up with money. That is a whole other level. We can dive deeper, but growing up in poverty, you get a little money, and this internal desire to overspend really comes from not having money and compensating for that. So for me, there were certain moments where I had to tap in and say, why am I spending? And a part of me, for the longest time, I share with my clients, I didn't want to create a budget because I didn't want to feel poor again. I didn't want to feel the no again. And I didn't want to feel the discomfort that came from knowing, oh, I can't have that. It literally was a trauma response from going back to childhood when I would hear, no, we can't have that. No, we have to get it from the Goodwill. No, no. And so for a while there, definitely overspending, not telling myself no, because I didn't want to tap into that. And so I go back to Target. Love Target. I had to ask myself, what's up with all these Target runs, these Marshall runs, where I'm buying all this stuff. I don't even wear it. It just, I'm buying all these blouses. They're there. I still haven't worn it, used it. And I realized as I tapped in, tuned in, a lot of it had to do, I was going when I was feeling very lonely or bored. And when there was nobody around to hang out, I would text people, hey, let's go out, let's go to brunch, let's go to happy hour, whatever. And people were like, I can't. Then I'd be like, well, I'm just going to head over to Target and wander around and buy stuff because that made me feel better and soothe the loneliness, the boredom that I was feeling at the time. And so what I usually love to talk to clients about is, if you find yourself that you're overspending, let's tap in. Let's like pause and tune in. And I love the idea of looking at yourself just without shame, without labeling, just like we're just a detective. We're just looking for clues. We're just trying to see what are the patterns, like what's happening. And I tell clients, let's do that. When are you shopping? What are you feeling? Does it tap into any memory? Does it tap into anything that's happened in the past, childhood? Like let's talk it together, because usually we're trying to soothe or compensate or fill something that we need filling.
Bro, what? Oh my gosh. Jeez. Okay. Like, and the thing is, you kept saying stuff like you weren't actually like saying stuff. You were like dropping these bombs, and it's like you're just gonna continue talking. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh my goodness. Those are some profound connections. Oh, wow. Okay. Where does one even go? You like again have said so much. Okay. So let's say somebody me related to something that you just said. What advice would you have for us as it relates to getting beyond the shame? So that we can even examine that.
Ooh, that's such a good question. And I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers. And usually when I'm working with clients, is that we have to start with giving ourselves a little grace. And we live in a very capitalist system where we put the blame on ourselves. Like, it's my fault. I can't believe I'm overspending, and I can't believe I don't have a budget. I can't believe I don't know that. I can't, like, oh my God, you're so bad with numbers. Oh my God, you're always broke. Oh my, like, it is these, like, the negative talk is just incessant. So one of the things that I share with clients is really giving them permission to be in the space where they're in, and reaffirming that, okay, first of all, we live in a system where most of us have not been given the proper tools to navigate this whole money thing, this whole spending thing. Majority of us haven't. That is not your fault. We start there, because a lot of the times, and especially when you think of the media and you think of everything, even folks with debt, there's so much shame around it. And it's funny, I always tell clients, let's look at who's shamed for having debt. It sure isn't these billionaires that are borrowing billions of dollars. That's called leverage. Yet when people of color have debt, that's debt and it's bad, and we're supposed to be shameful about it. Hold up. This doesn't make any sense. So I like to give people that information, because I think too, as people of color, we've been programmed to have these ideas that we're bad with debt, we're poor, we're always broke. We internalize that, and we use that, and we act upon that. So a lot of what we do is like, let's give ourselves a little grace. First of all, let's pause there. Let's look at systemically what's going on. Give yourself a little grace, and know that a lot of what we're doing and dealing with internally has also been impacted externally. So we begin there.
Ooh, goodness gracious. Oh my gosh. Hi. Okay. Like, wow. I don't even know. Cynthia.
Hilarious.
Cynthia Diaz, founder of Financial Space. Ma'am. Dude, you just said so much in such a short period of time. Like, just even the concept of the no and how that relates to getting no in the youth, the concept of, but once I create a budget, it becomes real. That concept of, no, I'm actually in these stores because I'm feeling lonely right now. So I want to be around people, and actually this sale makes the clerk happy. So then I get like a double dose of validation. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So just the ability to know yourself, like going back to what you originally said, the ability to know yourself and gain that aspect of self-awareness to be able to say, this is even what I'm feeling in those moments, is so amazing and so profound. And I can 1000% see how it could impact the financial state of someone's being. What would be one thing that we can do, any listener, like what would be one good starting point for us on this financial journey?
That's a great question. I think the fact someone wants to even start and is ready for change, I think is huge. Like, I'm always just like, oh, you're here. That's amazing. Let's like even give yourself props for being in this space, because a lot of people can just kind of go on and on and on and not really even get there. But I would say, the first is, all right, if we're going to embark on this journey of trying to create our first budget, or try to learn how to invest, or we're going to try to organize our money, let's enter this space with the idea, okay, I'm learning. I haven't taught, no one's taught me this. We're going to learn this as we go. We're going to experiment. So things are not going to be linear. They're going to change. They're going to go up and down. We may go back. That's okay. And I would say just really having that mindset, I think, is so important before we even like do a deep dive. That's why I love talking to people about this mindset stuff first, because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important. And then I think once you're primed and you know, okay, I can enter this space, like, and give myself that grace and know we're gonna have an experimental mindset. We're trying things. Then I think it's really, I would say, finding folks that have your similar background or that look like you, find financial information from them. Because I think that's so important. That's why I think what I do is so important, because historically, I think now this is changing, but I haven't seen a lot of brown women talking about money, talking
Yeah.
about building wealth, about saying, hey, I'm a millionaire. You can too. And guess what? I'm not a celebrity. I'm not an athlete. I don't come from money. We're literally building this on like an educator salary. So I think that's so important. So I think finding other people that look like you, have similar backgrounds, to learn from is so important. And I think now there's so many books now being written by women of color. There's so many great
Mm-hmm.
pages that you can follow. And I think taking it slow, little by little, is the way to go. And I think once you're at a point where you're like, okay, I think I'm really ready to do this, and this is a mindset shift, I think if you have the capacity, investing in your education. And I think that's another thing, that's a
Mm.
mindset shift that I think as women, we prioritize everyone else but ourselves. And a lot of the
Yeah.
times we'll say, well, we're going to spend on the family, on everyone else, but I'll leave myself last. And I want to say, no, we have to reframe that, because by you investing in yourself, in your education, that's how you're going to get the tools to be able to help everyone else. Like, if you don't know how to
Yeah.
invest, if you don't know about your children's 529s or how to save for them, it's going to be very difficult to help them. So before we go off and do that for them, let's have you invest in yourself so that you can help them. So I would say those are just some small steps.
Wow, wow, wow. Cynthia, you have taken us on a beautiful journey. You definitely level set us with understanding exactly where you are now and what you're doing now. And then you took us in a time machine back to your younger self, understanding the process of getting bused from your neighborhood to the suburbs, the process of going through the discovery of your true identity, dealing with the pressure that kind of comes with the first gen life, comes with the different ways that you identify your different points of intersectionality. And you even took us on this beautiful journey of understanding how that space of self-discovery truly impacts finances, and then hit us with like some to-dos that we can begin so that we can start the journey on the right foot. So as we bring it all together and bring it to a close, I love to ask a question about your future once we've talked about the present and we've talked about the past. So for my favorite question of the entire interview, which normally my favorite question of the entire interview, I tell you what, you've dropped so many gems. I don't know what my favorite is going to be from this one. If you had the opportunity to have a conversation with your 100-year-old self, what do you hope she'll tell you about the life you lived?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know, I want her to tell me that she's really proud that I lived a life with purpose and intentionality, and
Mm,
that I had the courage to really get to know myself as a
yeah.
person on this earth. And I think just my even ability to be here, and knowing that my time was limited, and that I was very intentional about connecting and being purposeful
Yeah.
here. So I think that, and just really having the courage to know who I am, and then learning who I am, having the ability to help others. And so yeah, I think that's what I want her to. Yeah, I'd be happy if she were to say that to me, like, girl, yeah, you lived a life of purpose. You were really, you did the most when you were in your younger years. Okay, we're good.
Oh man, so amazing, so amazing. Another gem dropped. I love it. I love it. I think that at the core is what the vast majority of us truly want. Cynthia, you've given us so much amazing advice. Any final advice for myself or any other audience member that's working to intentionally curate a better future for themselves and others?
Yes, I want to say take up space. And I even say this to myself because, and I remember that little Cynthia in those white classrooms where I didn't want to take up space and I felt ashamed to take up space and I didn't feel like I belonged and I felt I made myself small to not be seen because it wasn't my space. But I want to tell you, each and every one of you, to take up space, especially when we're talking about finances, especially when we're talking about building wealth. So many of us feel like investing or building wealth in this country, there's an otherness to it, is not for us. There's no way we can do it. There's so many barriers to it. And I want to tell you that the whole system was not designed with you in mind, which is why we have to own our power and educate ourselves and take up that space that's rightfully ours. And so I want to leave you with that because so many folks are afraid to go there. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. We need to get in there. We do and get a piece and a cut.
Oh, so good. So good. So for those listeners or viewers that do want to take up space, or they do want to continue the conversation, or they do want to get that financial assistance, can you please tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, financial-space.com. That has, my business stuff, but Instagram, super easy. Little hashtag, financial space. You'll find me. I have tons of videos. And just, if you want to sign up for my email list, I try to on a monthly basis send all my recommendations, like how to-dos, best tips, even things that I am personally doing. So there's tons of free resources. I mean, I'm all about like, you know what, let's empower the community as best as we can. So those are the two main places where you can find me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I highly encourage anyone listening or watching to go check her out. Thank you so much for being on the pod, Cynthia. Truly, truly appreciate your wisdom and everything you share with us.
Appreciate that. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. An absolute pleasure. And for everyone tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, let's continue to engage, encourage, and support each other as we work together to curate a FEM future.